Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about Google Chrome because Chrome's incognito mode may not be so incognito. Now, we've known this for years, but there are some recent developments here that you may not know about, and I think this is going to get interesting. This is coming from Bloomberg. Now, in an ongoing case on this matter, Google is accused of relying on pieces of code within websites that use its analytics and advertising services to scrape users' supposedly private browsing history and then send copies of it to Google. Now, according to Amanda Bond, who is the lawyer representing the users in this case, she told U.S. District Judge Lucy Koh this past Thursday in the San Jose, California court that Google made it seem like private browsing mode gives users more control of their data than they actually have. Now, Bond also said, and I quote, "In reality, Google is saying there's basically very little you can do to prevent us from collecting your data, and that's what you should assume we're doing." Now, Andrew Shapiro, who is a lawyer for Google, argued that the company's privacy policy, quote unquote, expressly discloses those practices, and I quote Mr. Shapiro, "The data collection at issue is disclosed." Another lawyer for Google, Stephen Broom, said that website owners who contract with the company to use its analytics and other services are well aware of the data collection described in the suit. Now, Judge Koh said that she's quote unquote disturbed by Google's data collection practices in this class action lawsuit that describes the company's private browsing promises as a quote unquote ruse and seeks $5,000 in damages for each of the millions of people, or possibly billions, whose privacy have been compromised since June of 2016. Now, Judge Koh demanded an explanation, quote, about what exactly Google does, while voicing concerns that visitors to the court's website are unwittingly disclosing information to the company. And I quote, "I want a declaration from Google on what information they're collecting on users to the court's website and what it's used for." Now, what is interesting about this is that this actually dovetails, as I mentioned before, we've known about this in the, for a while now, and in past reporting, this has been very expressly understood that Google's incognito mode is not so private beyond just, let's say, not tracking you on your own computer, but it's tracking you everywhere else. July 20th on 2019, a Wired article dove into this, and I quote, "A forthcoming research paper set to be published in the Journal of New Media and Society and first reported on by the New York Times saw researchers scan 22,484 porn websites. They found 93% of them housed trackers sending information to an average of 7 third-party domains. While this may be startling to many people, incognito has always made for an inadequate privacy tool." The article goes on to say that whether you're in regular browsing mode or incognito mode, those trackers are still active and sending your data all over the place. And to quote that Wired article from 2019 again, "Notably, third-party sites are able to detect whether site visitors are in private browsing mode, something that Oljanik says is being weaponized against them." That's the researcher. It's this capability that allows, for example, new sites with paywalls to block access to visitors with this mode enabled. For example, if you reach your limit of free articles on the New York Times, it's still able to recognize you and therefore stop access if you click into incognito, meaning you go into your regular Google Chrome, you go to the New York Times, you've reached your 5-article limit at that time, you move into incognito mode and you're thinking, aha, now I'm not being tracked. The New York Times, due to many indicators, still knows that it's you, and so you can't circumvent their paywall by simply going into incognito mode. It is still tracking you. And I think that's the core of this. We have this misconception based on, let's say, according to this lawsuit, I believe what they're talking about more along the lines of the marketing, what Google is telling us, that when you're in incognito mode, you're not being tracked. Nobody can see this. Nobody can go to your computer, sit down and see that you've been to, whatever site you don't want people to see you to go to. But the Googles of the world are still collecting that information. And overwhelmingly, most people that are using Chrome are actually logged in to their Google account, their Gmail account, as they're doing this, which means incognito mode is still sending trackers back and attaching that to your account. And so while it may not necessarily show up in a search history, Google absolutely knows what you're doing, not to mention the 7 on average other third-party websites that are getting that information when you're going somewhere. That is a huge problem. I don't think a lot of people know about this. So understand that when you are in incognito mode, there's a lot more indicators that show that you are there. Now, there are other private browsers that you can use that are outside of Chrome that don't track you. You can also use a VPN. There's a lot of different choices that you have, but if you're just using your standard internet connection in Google Chrome, understand there's no such thing as incognito, even if it doesn't show up in your history. And that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.